Senior researcher Sixtal adjusted their atmospheric filters as Earth's messy collection of gases assaulted their sensors. The planet's composition alone was enough to make their carapace ripple with discomfort. How any species could evolve in such a corrosive soup of elements was beyond their comprehension. Preliminary atmospheric analysis suggests native vehicles would require extensive shielding just to prevent oxidation, they dictated into their research log. Clearly, this evaluation will be brief. No primitive species could maintain complex transportation systems in these conditions. The words had barely left their primary speech organ when their ship's sensors screamed in protest. Something large was approaching through the cloud layer. Something that, according to every principle of galactic engineering, shouldn't be capable of sustained flight. Assistant Kitlak, verify these readings, Sixtal commanded, their antennae twitching in agitation. The sensors must be malfunctioning. Kitlak's manipulator appendages danced across the control surface. Readings verified, senior researcher. The object appears to be rotating itself to achieve lift. The assistant's voice carried the distinct harmonic of confusion. That can't be correct. The energy expenditure would be impossible. Sixtal finished, before falling silent as the object burst through the clouds. The thing was preposterous. A central rotating blade spun above a bulbous body, with another smaller blade counteracting the torque at its rear. No antigrav systems, no inertial dampeners, not even basic shield technology. Just pure mechanical force fighting against planetary gravity. And it was winning. Classification. Sixtal demanded, their professional detachment slipping. Humans designated a helicopter. Kitlak responded, reading from the cultural briefing documents. It's considered. Senior researcher, there must be an error in the translation. It's listed as obsolete technology. Sixtal's compound eyes fixed on the helicopter as it maneuvered through the turbulent air currents with impossible precision. Obsolete. Then what do they consider modern? The answer came in a cacophony of sensor alerts. Their research vessels' threat detection systems, designed to warn of approaching space debris, were having a collective meltdown. Hundreds of flying objects had just entered their scanning range, moving in patterns that suggested both organization and chaos. Multiple aircraft types detected, Kitlak reported, their voice rising in pitch. Fixed-wing craft ranging from personal transport to cargo capacity. Many are operating on combustion principles alone. Senior researcher, they're burning processed organic matter for propulsion. Sixtal felt their professional ego, carefully cultivated over years of evaluating primitive worlds, beginning to crack. Every species in known space had followed the same basic progression. Discover gravity manipulation. Develop safe transport systems, then expand those systems as technology allowed. It was logical. It was efficient. It was the only sane way to approach the problem of moving things from one place to another. Yet here was Earth, its skies filled with machines that seemed to defy the very laws of physics through sheer mechanical stubbornness. Send our credentials to the local authorities, Sixtal ordered, trying to maintain their composure. Inform them that the Galactic Transportation Safety Commission requires immediate access to their vehicle development facilities. Credentials sent, Kitlak confirmed. Their response is, they want us to land at something called an international airport and go through customs. Customs, we represent the Galactic Alliance. They insist, senior researcher. They say all vehicles entering their airspace must follow proper protocols. As if to emphasize the point, two sleek aircraft pulled alongside their research vessel. The designs were elegant in their brutality, clearly capable of both tremendous speed and maneuverability. Sixtal's threat detection systems categorized them as potential combat craft, but the cultural database marked them as obsolete interceptors used for airspace monitoring. If these were their outdated vehicles, what in the name of the first galaxy did humans consider current technology? Very well, Sixtal said, their voice carrying the harmonics of someone whose entire worldview is being systematically dismantled. Take us to their airport. And Kitlak. Yes, Senior Researcher. Update the preliminary report to the Commission. Mark it urgent. And add a personal note. I believe my previous theories regarding primitive transport development may require significant revision. As their ship descended through Earth's turbulent atmosphere, following the guidance of machines that should barely be capable of flight, Sixtel began to suspect that this routine evaluation might become the most important research of their career. Either humanity had somehow stumbled upon transportation principles that defied conventional understanding, or they were witnessing the most elaborate demonstration of mechanical brute force in galactic history. Neither option did much for their peace of mind. Observe, Zixtal instructed, their manipulator appendage hovering over the holographic display. Each vehicle maintains a separation distance of mere body lengths, while traveling at velocities that would qualify as combat speed on most civilized worlds. The research platform hung invisibly above what humans called an interstate highway, its sensors struggling to process the organized chaos below. The morning sun glinted off an endless stream of metal shells, each powered by contained explosions and guided by organic reflexes. Kitlak's carapace had taken on the pale blue coloration of extreme stress. Senior Researcher, I've completed the preliminary analysis of their safety systems. You won't believe. Try me. Zixtal interrupted, their own professional skepticism having taken a severe beating over the past day. After seeing their helicopters, I'm prepared for almost anything. The vehicles appear to be designed for high-speed impacts. They contain multiple automated deformation zones, kinetic energy absorption systems, and atmospheric containment devices that deploy explosively in milliseconds. Military-grade defensive systems, Zixtal nodded. As expected for a combat convoy of this scale. That's just it, Senior Researcher. These are their civilian vehicles. The humans call them cars and trucks. According to their public information networks, there are over 1 billion of them on the planet. Zixtal's antennae went rigid. Impossible. No species would mass-produce combat-capable vehicles for civilian use. The energy requirements alone. Their observation was interrupted by the arrival of their assigned human liaison, Sarah Chen's personal transport vehicle. Her car pulled into the research facility's parking area below with a casual precision that made both researchers' sensory organs twitch. Sorry I'm late. Sarah's voice came through their communication system as she exited her vehicle. Traffic was awful this morning. Had to take the express lanes to make up time. Kitlak's translator glitched trying to process the casualness of her statement. You participated in that. They gestured toward the highway with a trembling appendage. The morning commute. Every day. Sarah laughed. Well, except when I take the train. Speaking of which, we should head out soon if we want to catch rush hour at its peak. Zixtal's professional pride reasserted itself. Ms. Chen, we are witnessing what appears to be a mass mobilization of armored vehicles. As representatives of the Galactic Transportation Safety Commission, we must insist. Oh, Sarah's eyes widened in understanding. No, this is just normal morning traffic. Everyone heading to work or school or whatever. Here, let me show you. Before either researcher could protest, Sarah had guided them to her personal vehicle. Hop in. Well, carefully. I know your environmental suits are expensive. I just had the car detailed anyway. Zixtal found themselves folding their limbs into the passenger compartment of what their sensors insisted was a ground-based assault vehicle. The interior was disconcertingly comfortable, with surfaces designed to cushion and support multiple body types. The fact that such consideration had gone into the ergonomics of a war machine was troubling. Safety belts, please, Sarah said cheerfully, engaging what Zixtal's sensors identified as a controlled matter-antimatter reaction in the engine compartment. Though with your suits, you probably don't need them. Better safe than sorry. Kitlak's voice carried the harmonic overtones of barely contained panic. Senior Researcher, she intends to join the combat formation. Ms. Chen, Zixtal began with forced calm. Perhaps we should conduct our observations from a safer distance. Sarah was already maneuvering them toward the highway entrance. "Trust me, you'll want to experience this firsthand. Can't properly evaluate Earth transport without getting into the thick of it." What followed would require 3 separate appendages to properly document in Zixtal's research log. Sarah's vehicle merged into the high-speed flow of traffic with practiced ease, becoming one with the river of metal and momentum. Other vehicles moved around them in what seemed like chaos, but actually followed complex, unspoken protocols. "Notice how everyone maintains their lane position," Sarah commented, smoothly passing a larger transport. "Well, mostly everyone. That guy's been drifting a bit, probably texting. They're communicating while operating these machines." Kitlak's voice had risen to nearly ultrasonic levels. "They're not supposed to," Sarah shrugged, executing another perfect lane change. "Hey, want to see something cool? This next stretch has an HOV lane." Before either researcher could inquire about this new term, Sarah had guided them into a specialized lane where vehicles moved with even greater velocity and precision. All around them, humans casually operated their personal war machines while engaging in behavior their species categorized as small talk. "So," Sarah asked brightly, "what do you think of Earth transport so far?" Zixtal's response was delayed by the need to recalibrate their threat detection systems, which had gone into shutdown from overstimulation. "Ms. Chen, are we to understand that this level of vehicular coordination is considered normal?" "Pretty much, though you should see it when there's a sports event letting out. That's when things get really interesting." Kitlak made a sound that their species used to indicate extreme existential distress. "I believe," Zixtal said carefully, "that our evaluation criteria may require significant adjustment. The freight yard at midnight was a study in contrasts. Vast stretches of darkness punctuated by harsh industrial lighting, silence broken by the occasional metallic groan of settling equipment." Zixtal's sensors were finally beginning to recover from their morning exposure to human traffic when Kitlak's appendages suddenly went rigid. "Senior researcher, something approaches. The ground harmonics suggest significant mass." Sarah Chen smiled, her face illuminated by the glow of her data device. "Right on schedule. Union Pacific's overnight freight run. You might want to adjust your vibration sensors. It gets pretty intense." Before Zixtal could inquire about this warning, they felt it, a deep, rhythmic rumbling that their species evolved to recognize as a sign of imminent geological disaster. The vibrations grew stronger, and with them came a sound that their translation software struggled to classify. "Ms. Chen," Zixtal managed, their voice carrying harmonics of concern, "perhaps we should relocate to a safer." The freight train rounded the bend, and Zixtal's vocabulary failed them. A massive mechanical beast emerged from the darkness, its forward lights cutting through the night like search beams. The locomotive's power plant registered on their sensors as an electromagnetic anomaly that should have required a containment facility the size of a small city. Instead, humans had somehow compressed it into a mobile platform that moved with deliberate, unstoppable purpose. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Sarah's voice carried genuine admiration. "That's an AC 6000 CDO. 6,000 horsepower of pure electric thrust, powered by a diesel-electric system that could supply a small town. Want to meet the engineer?" Before either researcher could process this suggestion, Sarah was already waving to the locomotive's operator compartment. The massive machine began to decelerate with a precision that defied its apparent mass. "Evening, Sarah," a voice called down from the locomotive's control center. "These are visitors from the stars. Give me a minute to secure the system." Kitlak's sensory appendages swiveled rapidly between the train and their data displays. "Senior researcher, this single human is controlling a power output equivalent to. My calculations must be wrong. The energy readings suggest." "Hey folks." The locomotive's operator had descended, wearing what Zixtal's sensors identified as basic protective gear, far less than what any civilized species would require to approach such a power source. "Name's Mike Rodriguez. Welcome to the night shift." Zixtal attempted to maintain their professional composure. "You operate this device alone." Mike grinned. "Just me and Betty here." He patted the locomotive's hull with obvious affection. "Well, and the dispatch team keeping an eye on the network. Want to see the control room?" What followed was a tour that would fundamentally alter Zixtal's understanding of human infrastructure. The locomotive's control systems were a hybrid of mechanical interfaces and digital assistants that allowed a single operator to manage forces that most species would consider industrial scale. "So the neural interface connects directly to..." Kitlak began. Mike laughed. "No neural links needed. Just good old-fashioned controls and years of experience. Here, let me show you how the traction control systems work." As Mike demonstrated the locomotive's various systems, Zixtal noticed something peculiar about the freight cars stretching into the darkness behind them. "These containers, they're remarkably similar to your orbital cargo units." "Good eye." Sarah nodded. "Same standardized system. From trucks to trains to ships to space, everything fits together. Makes logistics a lot simpler." "But," Kitlak's voice carried harmonics of confusion, "most species develop specialized systems for each transport method. The energy required to make a single system work across multiple platforms would be excessive," Zixtal finished. "Unless..." They turned their sensory organs toward Sarah. "Unless every transport system on your planet is built to handle loads that most species would consider excessive." Mike's radio crackled to life before Sarah could respond. "Hey Rodriguez, got a school run coming through on track 3. Might want to show our guests." The researchers watched in bewilderment as a distinctive yellow vehicle approached on a parallel track. It was smaller than the freight train, but built with similarly robust engineering principles. "Is that..." Kitlak's translator seemed to glitch. "Are you transporting combat troops?" Sarah's laughter echoed through the rail yard. "That's a school bus. Well, the rail version. For getting kids to school in areas where roads aren't reliable year-round." Zixtal's professional detachment finally cracked. "You transport your young in vehicles built to military specifications." "Military spec?" Mike looked genuinely puzzled. "Nah, that's just standard civilian safety requirements. Though I guess the design principles aren't that different. Speaking of which, want to see how our emergency brake systems compare to Galactic standards?" Kitlak made a sound that suggested their emergency stress protocols have been activated. "I believe," Zixtal said carefully, their research appendage already composing an urgent update to the Commission, "that we may need to reconsider our definition of standard civilian requirements." "We should evacuate immediately," Kitlak insisted, their carapace vibrating with anxiety as they watched the weather radar. "These atmospheric disturbances exceed safety parameters for all known civilian vessels." The Harbor Control Center's windows offered a panoramic view of what Zixtal's meteorological sensors classified as a Class II apocalyptic event. Waves that could qualify as mobile geological features crashed against reinforced barriers, while wind speeds approached velocities typically associated with orbital reentry. Sarah Chen sipped from her 4th container of coffee that morning, seemingly unconcerned. "It's just a winter storm. Pretty typical for this time of year. Watch this." She reached for the command console's communication system. "Container ship Maersk Defender. Control. How's it looking out there, Captain Rodriguez?" The response came through clearly despite the atmospheric interference that should have scrambled any reasonable communication system. "Clear as a summer day, Control. Well, if you ignore the 40-foot swells, we're still on schedule for a 1400 dock time." Zixtal's translator must have malfunctioned. "Ms. Chen, surely they're not attempting to navigate in these conditions." "Of course they are." Sarah grinned. "Those containers aren't going to deliver themselves. Here, let me patch into their bridge cameras." The control center's main display lit up with a view that made Kitlak's chromatophores shift to the color of extreme distress. A wall of water rose before the camera, taller than most alien species' planetary transport vessels. The massive ship rose to meet it, and instead of being torn apart as any sensible physics would demand, it simply pushed through. "Impossible," Zixtal whispered. "The structural stresses alone should." "Want to see something really cool?" Sarah interrupted. "Captain Rodriguez, permission to bring our galactic friends aboard. I think they'd appreciate a tour." "Ha! If they don't mind a little rocking and rolling, send them over. I'll have the crew ready at transport." Kitlak's translator squealed in protest. "Transport? In these conditions?" 20 minutes later, Zixtal found themselves aboard what humans casually referred to as a pilot boat, slicing through waves that their engineering knowledge insisted should be unsurvivable. The vessel's operator, a weathered human female who introduced herself simply as Mac, handled the controls with the same casual expertise they'd observed in every human transport operator. "Might want to hold on to something," Mac called out cheerfully. "Getting alongside in this weather can be a bit sporty." What followed was a display of precision maneuvering that violated several laws of physics and at least two of Zixtal's deeply held beliefs about survival instincts. The pilot boat drew alongside the container ship, a structure that dwarfed many orbital stations, and maintained position despite forces that should have crushed both vessels. "After you." Mac gestured to a boarding ladder that swayed in what Zixtal's sensors registered as near-orbital wind velocities. The interior of the Maersk Defender proved to be yet another assault on their understanding of human engineering. Captain Elena Rodriguez greeted them on the bridge, one hand wrapped around her own container of the ubiquitous coffee, while the other danced across control interfaces that managed forces capable of reducing most planetary vessels to their component atoms. "Welcome aboard," she shouted over the storm's fury. "Sorry about the rough ride. We're trying to make up time after that delay in Singapore. You should have seen the weather there. Now that was interesting." "Interesting." Kitlak's voice had taken on harmonics usually associated with religious experiences. "You consider these conditions survivable, let alone operational?" "Well, sure." Elena shrugged. "That's what the ships are built for. Here, let me show you the engine room. That'll really blow your minds." The engine room tour had to be temporarily postponed when Kitlak's environmental suit initiated emergency shutdown protocols to prevent total systemic shock. The assistant had made the mistake of analyzing the power output of the ship's propulsion system, a setup that most species would consider appropriate for small planetary defense installations. 6-cylinder diesel engine, the chief engineer explained proudly, patting the massive machine that thrummed with barely contained power. "Latest ultra-long stroke design, more efficient than the old models, though personally I miss the raw power of the straight diesel systems. You contain this much energy." Zixtal struggled to maintain scientific detachment with purely mechanical systems. "Well, yeah, how else would you do it? Though if you really want to see something impressive, we should talk about nuclear-powered vessels. The Enterprise-class carriers, now those are engineering marvels." Zixtal's professional pride, already battered by their previous encounters with human transport, finally surrendered completely. "Ms. Chen," they managed, their voice carrying harmonics of resignation, "I believe we require access to your historical records. We must understand how your species arrived at these unique engineering solutions." "Oh, that's easy," Sarah grinned, somehow maintaining her balance as the ship crashed through another wave. "We needed to move stuff, so we kept building bigger boats until they worked. Want to see the cargo handling systems next? They're pretty neat." Kitlak's environmental suit began emanating the soft chime of its anti-panic protocols activating. The stadium's floodlights cut through the evening darkness, illuminating a terrain that Zixtal's geological sensors classified as deliberately hazardous. Massive earthen ramps, steep inclines, and what appeared to be artificially created obstacles dotted the arena floor. The crowd's excitement generated enough atmospheric vibration to trigger 3 separate warning systems in their environmental suits. "You're in for a treat," Sarah announced, leading them to what she called the VIP section. "Monster Jam is the perfect introduction to recreational vehicles." "Recreational," Kitlak's translator struggled with the concept. You mean training vehicles? For military preparation. Sarah's laughter was nearly lost in the crowd's sudden roar as massive machines rolled into the arena. They resembled the trucks the researchers had observed on highways, but grotesquely modified. Wheels taller than most galactic species' personal transport vessels. Suspension systems that seemed designed for orbital drop operations. Power plants that generated enough acoustic energy to register on seismic monitors. Ladies and gentlemen. The announcement system overwhelmed even the aliens' dampened audio sensors. Welcome to Monster Jam. What followed would require 17 separate appendages to properly document. The massive vehicles launched themselves into the air with deliberate intent, performing maneuvers that violated several fundamental principles of mechanical engineering. They landed with forces that should have reduced any reasonable construction to its component atoms, only to bounce back for more punishment. That's impossible, Zixtol muttered, their professional detachment crumbling as a truck executed a perfect backflip. The structural integrity requirements alone ruled. Oh man, wait till you see the freestyle competition. Sarah was practically bouncing in her seat. That's when they really get crazy. Crazier than intentionally launching multi-ton vehicles into aerial rotation. Kitlak's voice had taken on the harmonic frequencies of existential doubt. Their question was answered when the freestyle portion began. Vehicles that would qualify as medium armor on most worlds began performing acrobatic routines that would make precision flight instructors nervous. The crowd's reaction suggested this was not only normal but expected entertainment. Ms. Chen, Zixtol managed, their research appendages twitching as they tried to document the physics-defying display. These vehicles, they're built specifically for this purpose. Well, yeah. Though some people modify regular trucks for fun too. Speaking of which, Sarah checked her data device. We should head out early. I've got something even better to show you. Better. Kitlak's chromatophores had settled into a pale shade of perpetual anxiety. What could possibly? They got their answer 30 minutes later at what humans called a dirt bike track. Smaller vehicles, balanced on two wheels, and powered by what seemed to be barely contained explosive reactions, flew through the air with their operators still attached. The humans remain in contact with their vehicles during aerial maneuvers. Zixtol's voice carried harmonics of disbelief, without inertial dampeners, without neural interfaces. That's kind of the point. Sarah called out over the high-pitched scream of engines. It's all about skill and control. Watch this next jump. They're going to do a double backflip. Kitlak's environmental suit began emitting the soft chime of its crisis management protocols activating. But Sarah wasn't done with them yet. The next stop introduced them to ATVs, four-wheeled personal vehicles the humans apparently used to traverse terrain that most species would consider suitable only for atmospheric survey drones. Check this out, Sarah said, pulling up a video on her device. This is from last year's Dakar rally. 20 days of racing across some of the most challenging terrain on Earth. The researchers watched in horror as humans deliberately piloted various vehicles through conditions that would qualify as natural disasters on most worlds. Sandstorms, boulder fields, steep mountain passes. Nothing seemed to deter the participants. The vehicles survived this. Zixtol asked weakly. Most of them. Well, usually. Sometimes they break down, but that's part of the challenge. The crews have to be ready to make repairs in the field. They repair these machines, in such conditions, with basic tools and whatever they can carry. Sarah's enthusiasm seemed to grow with each new revelation of mechanical madness. It's amazing what you can fix with some spare parts and determination. Zixtol's research appendages had given up trying to categorize what they were witnessing according to standard evaluation protocols. Their species had terms for using vehicles in combat. They had terms for using vehicles in emergencies. They had no frame of reference for a species that would deliberately engineer machines to perform beyond normal operational parameters. For fun. I believe, they said carefully, watching humans cheer as more vehicles defied death and physics simultaneously, that we need to completely reassess our understanding of human vehicle classification. Oh, this is nothing. Sarah grinned, already checking her device for their next destination. Wait until you see what they do with spacecraft. Though first, want to grab some coffee? There's this great place right next to the drag racing strip. Kitlak's environmental suit began playing the harmonic equivalent of a lullaby, a last-ditch effort to prevent total cognitive shutdown. The National Transportation Museum's main hall stretched before them, a cathedral dedicated to humanity's obsession with mechanical motion. Zixtal's sensors struggled to process the variety of machines on display, each representing a different era of human engineering evolution. As you can see, the museum's curator, Dr. James Wilson, gestured to the timeline stretching along the wall. Humans have been improving our transportation technology for thousands of years, each innovation built upon previous discoveries. But Kitlak's voice carried harmonics of confusion. Where is the point of paradigm shift? The moment when your species discovered proper gravitational manipulation. Dr. Wilson adjusted his glasses. Oh, we've known about gravity manipulation theory for quite a while. It just wasn't practical for most applications. Too energy-intensive compared to mechanical solutions. Zixtal's research appendages went completely still. You chose not to pursue anti-gravity technology. Well, why would we? Look at this beauty. The curator led them to a massive steam locomotive, its black iron form gleaming under the museum lights. This is the Union Pacific Big Boy, built in 1941, when we were still burning coal to heat water. 4884 wheel configuration, capable of pulling more than 7 million pounds up a 1.2% grade. But Kitlak's translator seemed to be struggling. This is just shaped metal and controlled fire. Exactly, Dr. Wilson beamed. No computer systems, no quantum field generators, just pure mechanical advantage and brilliant engineering. The tolerances on these machines were sometimes measured to thousandths of an inch, all achieved with manual tools and human expertise. The researchers followed the curator through the exhibits, each display challenging their understanding of technological progression. Where most species waited for advanced solutions, humans had simply refined their primitive technologies to extraordinary levels. This section showcases early automotive development. Dr. Wilson continued, leading them past rows of increasingly sophisticated vehicles. Notice how each generation improved on the last. Better materials, more efficient engines, enhanced safety systems, all while maintaining compatibility with existing infrastructure. Zixtal's analysis protocols were detecting a pattern they had never encountered in any other species development. You didn't wait for perfect solutions, they said slowly. You just kept improving what worked. Of course, why wait for theoretical perfection when you can have practical progress? Take this Ford Model T, for example. Mass-produced, easily repaired, adaptable to multiple terrains. Was it the most advanced technology possible? No. Did it fundamentally change human transportation? Absolutely. Sarah, who had been quietly enjoying the aliens mounting revelation, stepped forward. Show them the aircraft section, Dr. Wilson. I think they'll find the progression interesting. The aviation hall proved to be the final blow to the researchers' preconceptions. The evolution from fabric and wood to hypersonic aircraft happened so rapidly by galactic standards that Kitlak's chronological sensors had to be recalibrated twice. 66 years, Dr. Wilson said proudly, gesturing between two aircraft. That's all it took to go from the Wright Flyer to landing on the moon. And we did it without a single anti-gravity unit. But the energy requirements, Zixtal protested weakly. The material science challenges, the computational needs. Oh, the Apollo guidance computer had less processing power than a modern toaster, the curator chuckled. But that's the thing about human engineering. We don't wait for perfect tools. We make the tools we have work better. The tour continued, but Zixtal was only partly listening. Their analytical mind was racing through the implications. Every transportation technology they'd encountered on Earth, from the morning traffic to the terrifying recreational vehicles, represented centuries of iterative improvement. Where other species sought technological leaps, humans had chosen the path of persistent refinement. Dr. Wilson, they interrupted suddenly. Your earlier statement about anti-gravity technology. You said it wasn't practical compared to mechanical solutions, but surely the efficiency would eventually be higher, yes, the curator nodded. But consider maintenance requirements, infrastructure needs, energy consumption across the entire system. Our primitive mechanical methods are robust, repairable, and most importantly, reliable. Did you know we still use steam turbines in our most advanced power plants? Sometimes the old solutions are the best solutions. Kitlak, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. Senior researcher, I believe I understand now. Their vehicles appear to be war machines because they're built to wage war against Earth itself. Zixtal finished. Every vehicle we've encountered, from their cars to their ships, represents thousands of years of humans fighting against gravity, inertia, and atmospheric resistance, and winning. Sarah grinned. Now you're getting it. Ready to see the experimental vehicle lab? They're working on some interesting hybrid designs that combine old and new principles. I believe, Zixtal said carefully, their research appendages already composing a complete revision of their evaluation protocols, that the Galactic Transportation Safety Commission may need to reconsider its definition of advanced technology. Dr. Wilson's eyes twinkled. Wait until you see our maintenance workshops. Ever wonder how humans fix machines in space without anti-gravity tools? Kitlak's environmental suit began playing soothing harmonics at maximum volume. I must insist on experiencing these conditions personally, Zixtal announced, their carapace set in what Sarah had come to recognize as their stubborn configuration. Our report to the Commission requires first-hand verification. Kitlak's chromatophores flickered in distress. Senior researcher, the human terrain vehicle specifications alone suggest. Exactly. Sarah interrupted, already reaching for her phone. And I know just the person to help. Give me an hour to make some calls. That's how the researchers found themselves approaching what humans casually referred to as an off-road park the next morning. A modified vehicle that Sarah called a Land Cruiser waited for them, its robust construction somehow managing to look even more intimidating up close than in the technical specifications. This is one of our more basic models. Their new guide, Marcus Chen, Sarah's brother, explained as he walked them around the vehicle. Stock suspension, standard armor package, just some minor modifications for reliability in rough terrain. Standard armor package. Kitlak's translator squealed. For civilian use. Marcus patted the vehicle's hood. Well, yeah, you need at least basic protection against rock strikes, tree impacts, that sort of thing. Though this model's pretty tame compared to some of the competition rigs. Zixtal's sensors focused on the vehicle's construction. And this is considered recreational. Among other things, same basic platform works for everything from family camping to emergency response. Speaking of which, Marcus checked his weather display. We should head out soon. Storms coming in faster than expected. The first part of their journey seemed deliberately designed to challenge every safety protocol in the researchers' environmental suits. The Land Cruiser climbed slopes that Zixtal's gravitational sensors insisted should be impossible for ground contact vehicles, forded water features that would qualify as inland seas on some worlds, and maintained stability through terrain that would give military assault vehicles pause. This is your species' idea of entertainment. Zixtal managed, their manipulator appendages gripping the interior supports as they crossed yet another obstacle. Part of it, Marcus grinned, expertly guiding the vehicle through a series of articulation tests. Though today we're actually headed somewhere specific. Should be there in about. Right on schedule. The storm hit with the sort of casual violence that the researchers were beginning to associate with Earth's natural systems. Rain reduced visibility to near zero, wind buffeted the vehicle with forces that should have sent it tumbling, and the ground beneath them began to transform from merely difficult to actively hostile. Now this, Marcus said cheerfully, engaging several mechanical systems simultaneously, is why we build them tough. Kitlak, you might want to adjust your grip on that handle. This next part gets interesting. What followed was a masterclass in why human vehicles needed their supposedly excessive engineering. The terrain, already challenging under normal conditions, became a shifting maze of obstacles and hazards. Mud that behaved more like liquid than solid earth, hidden rocks that tested the vehicle's reinforced structure, slopes that seemed to actively resist their passage. Yet the Land Cruiser, this basic model of human terrain vehicle, pushed through it all with methodical determination. Each challenge was met with a combination of mechanical engineering and operator skill that made mockery of the researchers' understanding of primitive technology. The real trick, Marcus explained as they winched themselves up what had become a nearly vertical mud wall, is understanding how all the systems work together. Differential locks, transmission ratios, weight distribution. It's all about using the right tool at the right moment. But Kitlak's voice carried harmonics of dawning comprehension, without computational assistance, without gravitational control. Sometimes the old ways work best. Feel that? Marcus guided them through a particularly challenging section. The vehicle tells you what it needs. Too much technology just gets in the way. Zixtal, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. I understand now. Your vehicles aren't overbuilt. They're exactly as robust as they need to be. Got it in one. Marcus nodded, bringing them to a stop at what appeared to be their destination, a research station perched atop a ridge. Earth doesn't give you many second chances. You either build to handle the worst conditions, or you don't build at all. As if to emphasize his point, a section of the trail they had just traversed collapsed, carried away by the storm's fury. The researchers' sensors registered the event as a localized geological disaster. Marcus just made a note on his phone. Might want to mark that route as seasonal on the maps, he commented. Though there's probably a bypass through the Eastern Valley. Want to find out? I believe, Zixtal said carefully, their research appendages already composing what would become one of the most significant revisions to commission guidelines in recent history, that we have finally begun to understand why human vehicles evolved as they did. Kitlak's environmental suit, having long since exhausted its supply of soothing harmonics, simply began playing recordings of their species' most calming ocean sounds. Zixtal's research station hummed with activity as they prepared their final report to the Galactic Transportation Safety Commission. Multiple displays showed footage from their Earth evaluation. Highways packed with high-speed traffic, trains pushing through impossible weather, ships battling ocean forces that defied comprehension, and vehicles that treated gravity more like a suggestion than a law. Senior researcher, Kitlak called from their analysis station. I've completed the comparative stress calculations. You'll want to see this. The data scrolling across their screen told a story that would reshape galactic understanding of technological development. Human vehicles routinely operated under conditions that most species would consider catastrophic failure scenarios. What the researchers had initially mistaken for military-grade engineering was simply the baseline required for survival on Earth. Added to the report, Zixtal nodded, their own appendages busy composing the introduction. Section 4, under Environmental Adaptations. The document taking shape on their main screen bore little resemblance to standard commission evaluations. Special report, Earth report evaluation. Senior Researcher Zixtal, Galactic Transportation Safety Commission. Priority status, immediate review required. The Commission's traditional metrics for evaluating transportation technology require complete revision in light of our findings on Earth. What we initially classified as primitive or militaristic engineering represents instead a unique evolutionary path driven by environmental pressures and sustained through iterative excellence. Sarah, invited to review their draft, sipped her coffee while reading. You know, when you put it all together like this, I guess we do go a bit overboard with our vehicles. Overboard. Kitlak's translator struggled with the idiom. Your species built machines that treat natural disasters as normal operating conditions. Well, yeah, Sarah shrugged. Earth doesn't really give us much choice. Speaking of which, did you include the data from that highway pileup we passed? Zixtal's appendages moved to another section of the report. The incident where multiple high-speed vehicles collided, yet their safety systems prevented any serious harm to the occupants. It's in Section 7, Civilian Safety Standards that exceed military requirements of 17 galactic species. The report continued, each section challenging another fundamental assumption about technological progress. Traditional Commission guidelines suggest that species should abandon mechanical propulsion upon discovering gravitational manipulation. Humanity demonstrates the flaw in this thinking. Their persistent refinement of basic technologies has produced transportation systems that exceed the reliability, adaptability, and sheer durability of many advanced solutions. Kitlak, who had finally stopped emitting stress harmonics at the sight of human vehicles, added their own observations. Their approach to mechanical engineering borders on artistic. Where most species seek to bypass physical limitations, humans learned to work within them so effectively that they turned constraints into advantages. That's just good engineering, Marcus commented from the doorway, having arrived to provide additional technical details. Why fight physics when you can work with it? Here, I brought some schematics from our new all-terrain testing program. Thought they might help illustrate the point. The schematics, showing the evolution of human vehicle testing protocols, became another section in the rapidly expanding report. Each page revealed another layer of understanding about how humanity had turned their planet's hostility into a forge for engineering excellence. Consider their maritime vessels, Zixtal dictated, gesturing to footage of cargo ships plowing through waves that would cripple most spacecraft. No anti-gravity assistance, no energy shields, just brilliant hydrodynamic design and materials engineered to withstand forces that most species never consider survivable. Don't forget the trains, Sarah added. The whole standardized container system started there. One solution working across multiple transport types because we couldn't afford inefficiency. The final sections of the report took shape, each building toward a conclusion that would send shockwaves through the galactic engineering community. This evaluation team recommends immediate reconsideration of Commission standards regarding primitive versus advanced technology. Earth's transportation systems demonstrate that technological sophistication cannot be measured purely by the fundamental forces manipulated, but must instead be judged by effectiveness, reliability, and adaptability. Furthermore, we recommend immediate study of human engineering principles by all member species. Their primitive mechanical solutions often surpass our advanced technologies in practical application. The durability requirements they consider standard exceed our emergency tolerances. In conclusion, Earth's vehicles are not war machines. They are survival machines, refined through centuries of conflict with one of the most challenging environments we have encountered. Their robust engineering is not excessive. It is exactly what their world demands. Perhaps most importantly, humanity's approach to transportation teaches us a valuable lesson. True technological advancement doesn't always mean abandoning old solutions for new ones. Sometimes it means perfecting the basics until they become extraordinary. Zixtal's appendages hovered over the transmission controls. This will reshape every Commission guideline for evaluating developing species. Good, Sarah grinned. Maybe now you'll be better prepared when you encounter our space program. Want to get coffee before we head to Cape Canaveral? Kitlak's environmental suit, having long since given up on maintaining their calm, simply initiated its backup stress protocols.